Yes.
I'm back. Okay, so here we are again, and gee, I have on the same T-shirt that I had on
every other episode you've done on this podcast ever.
Well, it's getting.
Do you
hot.
own another T-shirt that's not black?
Well, I own a bunch of black T-shirts, and this is one thing Adam Wingard and I had in common. Isn't one? We always wear black, which I've got not only a black T-shirt on, but black pants and black tennis shoes. Always wear black, and people always have trouble with our names. Is it Wingard? Is it
Wingard?
Wingard.
Yeah.
It's and we both have some ties to Alabama. And if anybody hasn't, I still I'm looking at the movies that are going to be released by A24, and that movie is, as far as I know, and I haven't talked to Adam about it, but that movie I do not believe is going to be released this year.
You don't think so? You don't see it on the schedule?
I don't see it on the schedule, and it's not.
That was his hope, wasn't it? Or was his aim?
That was his hope. But, we had this conversation, I think, before on the podcast that, some people are good at making movies and other people are good at deciding when that movie should come out and what it should come out against and, and what is good timing for the movie. So, when I originally talked to him, when we were shooting, and boy, he seemed confident and just casual and cool and wonderful. And like I said, he's been on the podcast. If anybody wants to go back and look at it, he's just a wonderful guy. And I think he's just a talent that is just waiting to jump through
we'll be hearing
stratosphere.
from him for years to come.
Yeah, well, I told him when he's 42, I said, dude, if you're anything like Ridley Scott, you'll be making movies for another 50 years. And he was kind of like, I guess I will. But, yeah, originally when I was working with him, he was like, I'd like to get this out on Halloween. And then I had that conversation with him and Aaron, the producer, and this is when the producer said, well, it's somebody else. A24 will do. They're a little bit better at this kind of stuff than Adam. Adam knows how to make them. He doesn't know how to sell them. Then I go into always go into the Jim Cameron
a lot
story.
will determine on the shape of their slate. What other movies they
what else?
How it fits into their schedule and plans and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
so.
And most movies going back. Ever since I've been in movies, they don't get released 6 months later. They might now because things are different now. But it used to always be a year. Usually, you could kind of count on things being about a year. But anyway,
last week you talked about him wanting to ask you something. Did you link up with him at all? You said he called you, and you were like, you didn't know exactly what it was about. Or
No. He called. No. He didn't call me. He asked his assistant to ask Jennifer for my telephone number.
Right.
And he didn't call. So when you get people like him, Jim is the same way too. These people, they're like right in the middle of stuff usually. And I always feel like an honor when somebody like Jim, who's going to do the podcast, but like Adam, who'll take his mind off of something else and actually listen to me, and talk to me about my concerns or my ideas. And, that has a tremendous cast. Kaylin, I worked with this girl. Her name is
Rebecca Hall, Adria Arjona, who's just a rising star coming up. Reginald Vell Johnson, classic. Dan Stevens.
Dan is just So I mean, it has it was this great script, and which I really loved, and then it's got all these great actors in it. I don't see how it can go wrong. I really don't. And by the time I was working on it, they had shot 80%, 75% of it, and he just seemed like the cat that swallowed the, what is it, Jim? You might know that one.
The canary.
The cat that's swallowed. Poor canaries. Did they used to take canaries down in mines to see if
canary in a coal mine? Yeah, if the canary died, it was time to get out of the coal mine. There's an old Police song with that title, "Canary in a Coal Mine."
It's got a reggae vibe to it.
Yeah, it sure does.
I think I know that. I think as soon as you said that, I could hear that in my mind.
You can hear
I was thinking
Sting,
reggae.
can't you? Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to talk to you, Jim, a little bit about, because we talked about Tombstone before, and the fact that that movie could have stopped shooting and not recovered, and or we would have had to stop for a long time and refinance it, and who knows what.
Kurt never would have come back together.
Kurt was really responsible for keeping. Well, the good news about Tombstone was a 160-page script, Jim, 150, 40-page script. It was a long...
God knows, I mean, Kevin wrote a number of drafts of that script. The two drafts I've seen, one of them is about 140 some odd pages. That was one dated in November of 92, I believe, and that's when actors were being submitted the script. That's probably the script you read. And then when you got closer to production around March of 93, I believe, then the script got shortened down closer to 130 pages. But I'm sure earlier, and even at 130 pages for a shooting script, that's pretty long. That's kind of longish.
Well, we had the luxury, and Kurt had the luxury, if you want to call it that, to be able to shut down that movie. And I think it feels to me like it was just like a weekend almost of madness where Kurt, and there was another director, and I meant to ask Kaylin, because he's probably in the credits as additional dialogue or something. There was a guy that they brought in who was a director and maybe wanted to direct it, finish it. And of course, they went with George Cosmatos, but there was a guy that was helping Kurt kind of decide what needed to stay and what needed to go. And I've talked before about, I lost this and I lost that. Yeah. And the women have lost this and they've lost that and everything. Anyway, it turned out very good. But it made me start thinking about, well, Kurt fucking held that movie together. And so that movie stayed together. I was watching I was reading actually something about Bill Murray recently, and I was thinking about Bill Murray, and I was thinking what happened on that movie that there was a movie that he was doing about a year ago or 2 years ago, and they were in the middle of production, and Bill Murray did something that an actress took offense and said there was something going on that she was not happy about and not comfortable with at all. And then they just stopped shooting it to investigate. This was kind of maybe after Me Too, but still it had a lot of the Me Too quality to it. And they just stopped shooting that movie. And And
It's
then
called,
we,
it's called Being Mortal.
what's it?
Being Mortal.
Being Mortal.
Yeah.
And one of the things that, Jim, whenever they do these things, it wasn't like I was looking for it or whatever, but Bill Murray, according to what I read, okay, and you sent me an article, and I read the article, and according to everything that I'm trying to find out, what did Bill Murray do that was so bad they closed down the production? And second of all, we'll talk about the fact that they never fucking continued shooting it. They just stopped shooting it, and the movie never got made, even though they were halfway through it, which had to have cost some company $10 million or $20 million. That's not an insurance claim. That's not something, I wouldn't think that you would be able to get an insurance claim out of that. And, I would think that, and maybe times have just changed, but I would think that Disney, if it's Disney or would just say, well, okay, we've investigated this for a day or two, and this is what we found out, and all right, now we continue. And from what I understand, he settled with her for like $100,000. And from what I read in the article, Jim, that you sent to me, was that he straddled her, whatever that means, and there was a bed close to them. I don't think they were on the way that it's written. It's like there was a bed close to them, and that he straddled her, and that he kissed her, but they both had on.
Yeah.
Masks.
Like COVID masks or
COVID
something?
masks.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem like... there's something missing here. There's something missing from...
Yeah.
Did you read the article, Jim?
I read a couple of them, yeah.
Am I right about what he's accused of doing, which sounds pretty like, wait, you're going to shut down a production and then... Who made it, by the way?
Well, Disney. And Murray said, I did something I thought was funny, but it wasn't taken that way. The company wanted to do the right thing, so they wanted to check it out and investigate it, so they stopped production. So, but then they never resumed again. So,
But what was the budget on that movie? I mean, who doesn't resume a movie? I mean, maybe they didn't like the dailies and they gave them, but that's a pretty big loss to just go like, well, okay, well, there was a disagreement between Bill Murray, who thought he was joking around, and a girl who thought it was a sexual advance. And then, and in the articles that I read, then, I think there's a English magazine tabloidish kind of thing called The Sun. And one of the articles might have been from The Sun. And The Sun is about as close as the what do you call the rag magazines? The
tabloids?
Yeah.
The supermarket tabloids?
Yeah.
Like Enquirer and
Yeah.
Globe and those things.
Yeah. About as you can get. And all of a sudden, half the article is about Gina Davis and what Gina Davis claims happened to her when she was working with him years ago, and that he wanted to use a
the Sun is a Rupert Murdoch owned.
Yeah, you know what? And you know what?
publication,
After the article, you read the article. It's The Sun, and what's very interesting is after the article, there's I don't know what the word is, like we thank you very much for reading all the help we get. We're trying to bring the news. You know that that thing that they do now, basically asking for money because because they're a news organization and the news organization doesn't make any money, and any help that you can get, that's coming from the fucking Sun. It's like, come on,
a Rupert Murdoch paper. Come on.
Yeah. So all of a sudden, there's more in the story about Gina Davis and what he supposedly wanted her to try a masseuse. I guess one of those things you'd rub on your back or who knows what. But I don't, Jim, what happens? Do you know what the budget was on that?
$20 million.
$20 million. All right. So somebody lost $20 million. Would have been Disney, but why wouldn't they have there's got to be more to this story.
Oh, I'm sorry. It says it reportedly had a budget of under $20 million. So
okay, well, probably $9 million. I mean, 19,999,000.
Something like that, I would think, but...
And it reportedly, who knows? But like, why stop? Why would that movie stop? And I just can't figure it out. By the way, and another thing that I noticed is in the articles, they mentioned Bill Murray about 30 times. Did they ever mention the actress's name? And
I don't think it
was a production assistant.
It was a production assistant.
Oh, I thought it was an actress. It was a PA. Wow, there's a big difference between a leading lady and a PA.
If you're straddling a PA and smacking her with your mask on.
But that's pretty benign, don't you think, Jim? It's like if he's a comedian, for God's sakes, he's a comedian. Well, he goes up and he kisses you. He's got a mask on. You got a mask.
Doesn't it sound a little like the kind of stuff that got Al Franken in trouble? For like horseplay,
boy,
inappropriate for sure, and but
well,
I mean,
started
he paid
having
a pretty significant price for it.
I started having this conversation. We started having this conversation the other day, yesterday or the day before yesterday, and this reminded me of the movie that Bruce Willis did for Disney also. I believe it was for Disney.
Well, he did or didn't do.
He did or didn't do that. What was that called, Jim?
It's called Broadway Brawler.
And who was the actress who was directing it?
Lee Grant.
Lee Grant, right?
Who had won an Oscar herself for her performance in Shampoo, and she'd been in a number of movies back in the 70s, especially. And her husband was one of the producers, and she was going to be directing this thing called Broadway Brawler.
Well, she did direct like 20 days or 25 days of it, correct?
Oh, yeah.
So
they were well into it.
They go in 25 days, and I guess Bruce Willis says, I don't want to do this anymore.
Well, he basically said, you're fired, and you're fired, and he fired the director and the producer and this person and that person, and he was firing everybody right and left. And Disney said, pull the plug on the whole damn thing.
So,
and they filed a suit against him.
A lawsuit, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, I don't understand why there weren't any lawsuits in this other situation.
And it got resolved when Willis agreed to do a couple of movies for Disney at a discounted rate, and he did he agreed to do. He agreed to do. He agreed to do 3 movies. They wound up being Armageddon, Sixth Sense, and The Kid. And he agreed to do those for lesser fees than his normal amount. But he got gross points on those movies, and 2 of them were huge hits. Armageddon and The Sixth Sense especially was a huge hit, given that there were no other significant profit participants in that movie. You didn't have a whole bunch of actors with gross points in that movie.
So this is fun. Well, So it says at least for Armageddon, he received $3 million, which is a significant pay cut from his normal asking price of $20. But the 3 movies he did do, The Sixth Sense, The Kid, and Armageddon, went on to together gross $1.3 billion.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And that was his punishment for like stopping a production in mid-production and saying, I don't want to do this anymore. Can you do me a favor? Can you look up M. Night Shyamalan? And M. Night Shyamalan, it seemed to me, did what was the name of the first one? The ghost movie?
Sixth Sense.
The Sixth Sense. Okay, so he did The Sixth Sense, which was like brilliant, just absolutely brilliant. And then, and I could be very wrong. That's kind of why I wanted you to look it up. It seemed to me that he had, like anything he wanted. I think the next one he did with Mel Gibson.
No, the one he did after that, which was also very good, is called Unbreakable. That was
It's
also
pretty
Bruce
good
Willis,
with Willis and
Yeah.
Samuel Jackson, I believe.
And then it's
It's not
after
bad.
that
It's
one
not-
that his
it's not-
movies kind of start to go down.
They have Signs and a bunch of
Village,
Lady in Water or whatever it was called, and the Paul Giamatti movie, and
The Happening
some of
is
them-
a very
yeah,
hilariously
but
bad
he's
movie.
kind of making a comeback. That last
Yes.
movie of his was quite successful, and he's got a real tasty Jake Gyllenhaal project coming up that they're going to be shooting very soon.
Yeah, he made those 2 really good movies, and then they kind of started to go downhill more. Like Signs was okay, but then like they started to go more and more downhill. And then he made a movie with James McAvoy called Split.
How many movies did he make between the second good one and the James McAvoy movie?
7.
7. Yeah, I mean that's a lot of chances. It seems to me, but I guess when your movies make $1 billion, that people are willing to gamble a little bit on that.
James, I don't know if you know the movie Split, but James McAvoy plays a character with like multiple personalities.
Yeah.
And he's playing like 10 different characters in the movie, and he's fantastic. He's
Really?
really,
Wow.
really good in it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I've never seen that movie. You mentioned something in the water.
It's called Lady in the Water. Yeah, that's the Paul Giamatti one.
What's this? What's the name of the star? Freddie Rodriguez. Can you look up Freddie?
What about him?
Was he in that?
Oh.
In the water? Was he in an M. Night Shyamalan movie?
Yeah, let me look it up. The one you worked with on
Grindhouse.
Grindhouse, yeah. Let me see here. Look at his credits. No, I'm not seeing. No.
Okay.
Oh no, yeah, he was in Lady in the Water.
Okay, so he was Lady in the Water. I just wanted to, point out, people that really don't understand the business, or sometimes the business doesn't understand people. And there are so many situations of people that, we think are going to be big stars and kind of these careers, and other people that we don't notice, and all of a sudden they're stars. And Freddie Rodriguez was a really sweet guy, and he was the person when we were doing Grindhouse, which was probably 17 or 18 years ago, said to me, "Michael, where's your computer?" And I was like, I fucking don't need a computer. He was like, "Yeah, you do, Michael. Yeah, you do. Come on.
Get in the modern world.
I'm
man.
I'm gonna take you out. We're gonna get a computer for you. I'm gonna show you how to use it. I'm gonna set it up for you." And a really sweet guy. And of course, ever since then, I have been plugged in, I guess, as they say. But Freddie, when he did Grindhouse, which was a Robert Rodriguez, Quentin Tarantino production, that he was the star of, of Robert's Planet Terror. He was the star of that half, or the part that Robert directed, not what Quentin directed. But he had also done the movie for M. Night Shyamalan. He'd also done a movie, Bobby Kennedy, that Charlie Sheen's Emilio Estevez directed. Bobby. He had also done a movie.
Did a movie with Kurt Russell called Poseidon.
Poseidon. That was
He
another one.
He had done a pretty good Hughes Brothers movie called Dead Presidents, too.
Well, those movies that I'm talking about, Lady in the Water, Poseidon, who's the guy?
Yeah, all of those movies were in 2006 and 2007. They were back to back. It was Bobby, Lady in the Water, Poseidon, Grindhouse. Boom, 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 boom.
Yes, and before that, he did, who's playing Al Davis in the Madden movie? The Madden. Jim, your favorite actor, I always forget his name. He's screaming on the Terminator set, goddamn fucking cinematographer, motherfucker, cocksucker. You know, come on.
Jim, do you know who he's talking about?
On the Terminator set.
God, it's this close to me being him. All right, so you're on the Terminator set like 4, and he's playing John Connor.
Oh, Christian Bale.
Yeah. All right,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right before that, he had done a movie with Christian Bale too, right?
Right.
So he did the Christian Bale movie had come out. He's got Bobby coming out. He's got the Poseidon Adventure coming out.
It's called Harsh Times.
Harsh Times, right. I mean, this guy was like just set up. And then every single one of those movies fucking took a fucking dive, including Grindhouse, didn't make any money. Poseidon Adventure didn't make any money.
No.
Or if it did, it didn't do what they were expecting it to do. Bobby didn't do anything.
No.
Lady in the Water didn't do anything. And here's a guy who had like a career that you just thought like, oh my God, in the last
fail-safe.
Fail-safe. There you go. Fail-safe. And just everything tanked. And anyway, I haven't really seen him since or seen him in anything. Does he still work?
Looks for a lot of years he was on a TV show called Bull. He was a main cast member that ran from 2016 to 2021. So that's what he was doing for a while, it looks like.
Yeah. But we were talking earlier about movies that stop in the middle, and they are there any other movies, Jim, that you're aware of that they shoot for 25 or 30 days and then just quit and go like, you know what, this isn't working, or there's a problem with the
usually not, because by then you're so deep in and you've got so much invested. If the situation becomes untenable and somebody has to go, you look for a way to try to make up for it. And usually the person who goes is the director. And in a situation like yours with Tombstone, you were 4 weeks in when your director took off, and yet the movie, the pressures were there to try to hold that movie together, and it did hold together.
I had read that Louis C.K. was doing a movie, and that when he ran into his problem, and that they shut that down for a moment and replaced Louis C.K. Are you familiar with what that movie is?
No.
No, I was just looking up movies that shut down in the middle of production. I found another one from 2009, a Robert Zemeckis movie with Carrie Elwes in it that got shut down called Yellow Submarine.
Really?
Yeah, but I'll look up the Louis C.K. one.
There's a funny documentary called Lost in La Mancha about a Johnny Depp, Terry Gilliam movie about.
Yeah. I've seen that. Yeah.
that started. I don't think that one lasted a week, but I mean that was just everything that could go wrong went wrong with that movie, and they did have to pull the plug on it. And I think some years later, Gilliam was able to pull together a production. Maybe 10 years later, Johnny Depp was no longer a part of it, and he kind of got the movie made, but not the way he had intended to. And nobody saw it. Nobody saw it. But the documentary about the first movie falling apart is hysterical to watch.
Well, one
I
of
mean,
the
it's Murphy's Law writ large. Everything that could go wrong went wrong.
well, I think it was Johnny Depp's co-star in it. It was I think a Spanish actor.
Yeah.
Whatever.
They were shooting in Spain.
They were
The guy
shooting
was
with him.
a well-known Spanish actor.
Yeah, on a horse, and they had him riding around on this horse for a day or two, and he started complaining about a pain in his ass. And
Oh, he had like a herniated disc or a prostate or
he had
some
he had prostate cancer.
prostate. Yeah, he had he couldn't sit on a horse. And this is Don Quixote, and he couldn't. They'd put him on a horse, and his face would be racked with pain. It was painfully obvious that this guy can't perform this thing. They started shooting. They had a location. They built this village set. They started shooting, and somebody didn't. Whoever picked that location didn't appreciate that they had picked a location right next to a NATO bombing range. And while they were trying to shoot, they had these jets screaming overhead, dropping bombs off in the horizon. So that kind of screwed things up. And that night they had a once every century storm roll through and completely trashed the village set that they had put together. And then just 2 days later, when they were still trying to find stuff to shoot, they were going to shoot the old man.
Jim,
on
is
the
that
horse.
anything like the once in a century storm that just hit Texas
Yeah.
a day or two ago?
Pretty much like, yeah, absolutely. And totally demolished this village. And so they had to, find some other stuff to shoot while they were trying to rebuild the village. And that's when they discovered that their lead actor couldn't sit on a horse. And at that point, they said, "Oh, fuck this. Pull the plug. Call the insurance company."
Yeah,
Did you find the Louis C.K.
Yeah, it's
thing?
called "I Love You, Daddy," and they actually made the whole movie. It was scheduled to be released, and then when his scandal came out, they just pulled it from the theaters. So they just decided not to wide release it.
They just didn't release it at all?
Right, yeah. So
Can you get
first
it
they
on-
canceled the premiere due to unexpected circumstances, and then in November 2017, a week before it was set to be released theatrically, it was pulled from the schedule. And then Louis C.K. ended up, I think, buying distribution rights back from the company that originally purchased it from the Toronto International Film Festival.
So
it was made. It was made and it was scheduled to come out in, I think, a limited
So
release,
if
and then the production company or the distributor just pulled it.
And then if you wanted to, what was the budget on that movie? And somebody's just going to take another $20 million hit because of it was made with Louis C.K. or they replaced Louis C.K.
It was made with Louis C.K. starring it. He also directed, wrote it, starring.
Oh, okay.
Doesn't have the budget on Wikipedia.
What was it called?
I Love You, Daddy.
And can you get that on Prime
And it's
Video?
got the cast is obviously Louis, Chloe Grace Moretz, who's a big actress, Charlie Day, John Malkovich,
Wow,
Edie Falco. It's got names in it.
And is it available?
Probably. Let me look up the budget. Let's see. Reportedly, the film had a budget of $5 million.
Okay. That's a little bit smaller deal. I had read when I was kind of looking at movies that had shut down, I had read that they replaced Louis C.K., but that's obviously not what happened. Is they just kept making it, and because of the troubles that he had, somebody decided not to put it out wide in theaters. Is that movie available on?
I tried to look it up on my app, and it didn't say it was streaming anywhere. You might be able to rent it on Amazon or something, but I don't know. I'm still looking into the production problems.
Louis C.K.'s site, he'll rent it to you. Seems like that's what he does with comedy now. He doesn't need HBO or anybody else to.
He just does everything himself.
He just does everything himself. Yeah. Well, that reminds me a little bit of. The movie that The guy who directed Alien.
Ridley Scott.
Ridley Scott. Ridley Scott directed a movie, and all of a sudden they started having a problem again. Like, I'm getting tired now. I can't think of names, but he ended up the guy who had all the gay men who were like
Kevin Spacey.
Kevin Spacey, yeah. What was the movie that he made, Jim?
Oh, the was it all the money it takes or something like that?
Didn't they shoot that movie?
Yeah, they
and then
shot
have
that
to
movie. Yes, and then he had to
go
basically
back.
reshoot all of, and he only did it in a manner. I mean, this was just weeks before. Before, I think it was a movie about the Getty family.
All the
Yes.
money in the world.
All the money,
all
in
the
the
money
world.
in the world, and Spacey had shot the movie with Spacey, and then all the Spacey crap happened, and he basically had to go reshoot Spacey stuff with Christopher Plummer,
Right.
and he did it just a couple of weeks before the movie was due for release. It was amazing that he was able to pull that off.
Yeah. Well, that's Ridley Scott for you, huh?
Well, it didn't make the movie any more worth watching, but yeah, that was pretty amazing. And then there's that Batgirl movie that Warner Brothers made a couple of years ago,
Oh,
and just
yeah.
they were in production and they just pulled the plug on the whole thing. So we're not going to do anything with it, and it was nearly done. A $90 million movie.
90 million. Who?
Yeah.
Was this Disney also?
No, this is Warner Brothers, part of their Batman.
So
part
they
of
got $90 million in this movie, and they're 3/4 of the way through shooting it. And
they shot it. They
shot
it.
it?
They just
and it just said, "Fuck it, it's not worth reshoots. It's not worth."
It's not worth releasing. It's not worth. It doesn't fit into our current plans.
Who was the
Well,
who
this
played?
this was the Warner Brothers announcement. The decision to not release Batgirl reflects our leadership's strategic shift as it relates to the DC universe and HBO Max.
Okay, well, I don't know what that means.
Leslie Grace is an incredibly talented actor, and this decision is not a reflection of her performance. We are incredibly grateful to the filmmakers and cast of Batgirl. We hope to collaborate with everyone in the near future.
That sounds like Doug Stanhope's. I'm truly sorry. I promise never to. Again, if I offended anybody, I by no means
if anybody
meant to.
took offense, then go fuck them. I don't care. They're thin-skinned. Can't you take a joke?
Yeah.
No. It says in August of 2022, Warner Brothers Discovery announced that it no longer planned to release Batgirl on HBO Max or theatrically.
What came out, Caitlin, this weekend? It did the dinosaur movie.
Oh, Jurassic Park.
Jurassic Park. Okay, so that's going to be a huge movie. Jim, can you look at the box office for the last month? Because it seems like we were doing the podcast about a month ago, and I was going, look at what's leading, the box office, and it was, movies that I was not aware of and didn't look like they were all that, and then like 3 weeks later, it was still the same group. I mean, the last month before Jurassic Park came out, that had to have been here's what I'm really trying to ask, Jim, is, and I've been, I'd said for a long time, movies are dying, movies, theaters, it just can't go on. It's just like too easy to watch it on your phone and stuff. Is the amount of, and I know now it's worldwide and they're selling stuff in India and China and things are different, but box office for the United States of America, is that down?
Yes.
From how down? Do you know?
A good amount.
Okay.
Although I mean, in terms of where it was 5 or 6 years ago, it's down considerably. Where it was before the pandemic, it's down considerably.
Okay.
And probably won't ever get back to those levels. But this was a pretty good weekend. Jurassic Park opened at close to $150 million.
Well, there's always going to
domestically.
There's going to be these tentpole movies that do that kind of business, but I would like to know how much money was made at the box office in the month preceding, or the 6 weeks preceding this sequel, because it just seemed to me there was nothing in the theaters, just nothing in the theaters to watch, and that's kind of what I've thought for a long time. It's just like.
I mean, they had Mission Impossible, so that helped quite a bit.
Mission
But I'm seeing that in June, total box office gross was $830 million, according to Box Office Mojo.
Lilo and Stitch did pretty well,
yeah,
too.
Lilo and Stitch.
What is that?
That's like it was an animated Disney movie that they made into a live action one.
Okay.
And that did very well.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess that.
And there's a new Karate Kid movie out too.
Yeah.
Also, the new Brad Pitt movie F1. Which
That's
I was even thinking of going to the
extremely
theater for
Yeah.
that
Well,
one.
that one I'd go to the theater to see that one. That was released this weekend also.
Mhm.
No,
It
it's been
looked-
out for
yeah,
a
it
week
looks
or
like it's
two,
in
I believe.
theaters, yeah.
But
In
it's
July,
doing
it's come out.
extremely well. It's doing extremely well,
Yeah.
which is a bit of a surprise because it was made, I believe, for Apple.
Yeah.
And they generally, haven't been that enthusiastic about releasing their movies theatrically. But this might change their mind.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess I'm just not familiar with some of the movies that have come out and that have made a lot of money. It seems to me that we're just seeing less and less. And it kind of goes back to my argument that. About AI and how much AI now is infiltrating our universe, and the fact that it seems to me that audiences, at least in America, are just like, you can feed them anything you want if it says Marvel on it, or if it's a children's movie, and people run to see it. So if I've heard filmmaking, and it's hard for me when I'm talking to Alex about the fact he wants to be an actor. I sat down with Alex the other day, and it's just my belief, and maybe I'm just wrong. But I just don't see much future for the business of content the way that we've been making it. And I think that, AI is starting to surprise us, but I think it's coming fast. And I think the idea that I'm going to be able to protect my image is just fanciful. Is that the word?
Fanciful.
Fanciful. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's fanciful. Maybe I could protect it from Disney for a couple of years, or protect it from YouTube. I mean, some of these Netflix, or Apple TV, or some. Maybe I could protect it. What if some guy wants to go make a movie in India with my likeness? What if somebody wants to go make a movie?
China is not abiding by any of these rules.
Where you don't have any copyright protections.
What? Yeah, and I just don't. I've had this. Go ahead.
It could be done already. It probably has been done, but you're not aware of.
Well,
not to any great commercial degree, but I'm sure.
Did I tell you about Seth Curry, or did I tell the podcast about Seth Curry?
I don't remember you talking about that.
Okay, well, all right. So, Jim, I'm watching TV. Not watching TV. What am I talking about? I don't watch TV. I'm looking at my phone, and my phone is throwing stuff at me that it knows that I like to watch. And in between the 8 and 10-second clips of half nude women dancing. I'll get some sports stuff. And I got basically the basketball season just ended, but about a month ago they were still in the playoffs, and Seth Curry, I think he still plays for San Francisco, the Warriors.
Steph Curry. Steph Curry. Seth Curry is his brother.
Steph. Yeah.
Stephen Curry is the Golden State Warriors star.
Okay. Stephen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The one who's been a star for 10 years?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. But it's confusing because his brother's name is Seth. So that's why.
And I was saying Steph, so I was like combining the two brothers, and okay. Who am I talking about?
Talking about Stephen Curry.
Stephen Curry.
Stephen Curry.
Okay,
Yeah.
so my phone's throwing stuff up at me, and here comes Stephen Curry, and it's obviously one of those after the basketball game. Usually the stars of the team or anybody that they ask, need to sit down and answer a few questions from the press. We've seen it hundreds of times with hundreds of different basketball players. And so I'm looking at Stephen Curry.
Yeah. So
Stephen Curry is basically talking, and I'm watching it, and his team's just been knocked out of the playoffs, and he starts talking about the fact that he thinks he's going to be retiring, which is like, well, that's big fucking news that he's going to retire. That's huge. And then he proceeded to kind of shit on a couple of his teammates and basically say, this guy didn't play up to his abilities. I don't think he was trying that hard. I'm just sick of all this bullshit. And then that disappeared off my phone, and some dancing girls came up with my phone, and then something else came up, and then and I just thought, in the back of my mind, I was just thinking, Stephen Curry. That's I'm just not. In nowhere in any of those NBA interviews does anybody ever slam a teammate. They just don't do that. That's just like unheard of.
Yeah.
But I still thought like, well, that's fucking weird. And then another basketball player came up.
They do this a lot with sports players. I don't know what it is about the post-game press conferences, but that's like a ripe place for them to plug in like an AI-generated lookalike and have them saying ridiculous stuff. Like whatever it is about that setting, the post-game press conference, they do that with a lot of players and coaches and stuff.
Okay, well, it fooled me.
Yeah.
I mean, after the second guy came up, and he was saying some silly shit, and then he said, I got to go. I'm expected at Diddy's house, something like that. And I immediately went like, what? Wait a second. What am I watching here? And then I realized.
Somebody's putting a shuck on me.
Yeah, and then I realized that what I had been watching was AI. And I didn't know the difference, and maybe I wasn't looking that hard, but that's now. So what are we talking about 2 years from now, and what are we talking about 4 years from now? And, there's just no doubt in my mind that they're going to start making movies that are completely AI. Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely.
AI. Like when Robert Rodriguez made... I'll think of the name of his movie in a second, which was completely CGI. Sin City, completely CGI. Now we're going to get we're going to get movies that are completely AI. And I said this before. I just feel if it's up to, we'll just take America, forget about the rest of the world. If it's up to the tastes of what Americans want to watch, I'm sure they'd rather go watch the AI stuff than, something that
Well, Tyler Perry was building an $800 million studio expansion, and he shut it down because of AI. He saw what was coming and went, I'm not putting $800 million into this, so he shut it all down.
Well, this is down in Atlanta?
Probably, yeah.
Well, didn't he already put...
he already
it was an expansion. It was an $800 million expansion that he shut down.
And he shut down because of AI.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder how much that has to do with the jobs. And have I mentioned on the on this Greg Nicotero's?
Yeah.
No,
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, and his son, the cinematographer.
But I've mentioned it on the podcast. Yeah. And so, it's. Let me see. Who was I talking to about this? Somebody fun I was talking to this about the other day, that it was just like, we were like, I feel like I was right. Like, boy, I was born at the right time to be an actor, because I don't think acting is going to be the same. Forget 20 or 30 years from now, but, there's just going to be more and more stuff for people to watch instead of acting. And
very true.
I think that movies are going to go the way of like Major League Baseball. Isn't Major League Baseball sort of on a downslide?
I've been hearing that for years. I think it's still... I mean, it's not what it once was, but...
No, it's not as dominant as it used to be, but it's, still reasonably healthy.
Well, anyway, we'll see. Someday Kaylin's daughter, maybe my granddaughter, might take... I'm hoping that, that instead of writing a book, at some point somebody will take the 400 hours of podcasting that I do and turn it into an hour and a half. Oh, this is who Michael Biehn was. So,
well, you could probably get AI to do that for you.
I know you could.
Well, I've already, in the last 2 weeks, I was supposed to. I got some award in Lake Havasu, and they wanted to put my plaque up at their high school in Arizona that I graduated from for being, an exceptional person after I graduated from high school. Didn't have anything to do with Lake Havasu High School. I can guarantee you that. But anyway, so, and I said, okay, well, just do it. I just don't bother me anymore with it. And then they wanted me to write an acceptance speech because I wasn't going to show up to get it. And I said, Jennifer, can you help me? Jim, I can't write. So can you help me with this? And so she just fucking plugged it into AI, and I read it, and I thought it a little bit generic, but yeah, why not? Send it over there. I don't care. I don't care at all. And then Alex, my son Alex, that I was talking to you about, has got he said, I want to read my new resume to you. And I wish I had it here, because before he said, I worked as a first responder in clubs, and, I've worked as a first responder, been on some ambulances, like that kind of a vibe. And then he gave it to AI, and now his resume looks like and sounds like, oh my God, I have to have this guy working for me, I mean,
look at all the lives he saved. Yeah. Indispensable.
Yeah. I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable. One thing in history, Jim, that I wanted to ask you about, because I didn't know it, but, just because Iran has been in the news so much in the last couple of weeks and with the war and everything, is that I watched a documentary about the Shah of Iran.
Oh, yeah.
And I was under the impression that when the Shah left Iran, he just came to, that he was our guy, and that, and he just came to the United States, and then stayed in the United States and everything was wonderful for him until he died of cancer 2 years later. And as it turned out, like, that didn't happen at all.
No.
Yeah. Explain what did happen. I want to see
Well,
how close.
it's vague in my memory, but he was more or less forced out of Iran.
Yes.
He had he was really ill, and he came to this country for cancer treatment, and that really pissed off the Iranians who had taken over, the Ayatollahs people, that we were giving safe harbor to the Shah. And that was one of the reasons why they grabbed our people out of the
Yeah.
out of the embassy,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And eventually we told the Shah we didn't want him in this country, so they were packing him off to the Caribbean. I think he wound up in Panama. I think he wound up dying in Panama.
Well, yeah, he was all over the place.
Yeah, he was being bounced out to the Bahamas.
Yes,
to Panama,
yes,
you know.
and then back to one of the Middle Eastern countries, and then back to he was in Texas. His family was in Texas for a while.
Yeah,
and,
for sure.
No, I didn't. But then it made sense to me that's the reason the Americans and poor Jimmy Carter.
That was a bad stroke. Bad stroke of luck for that to happen at that time,
Yeah.
for the Shah to fall apart, because for years we had regarded him as a symbol or a pillar of strength in that region.
Jim, when they talk about nationalizing the oil over there, what does that mean as compared to the way that it was before?
Well, what it meant was, instead of the Western oil companies like, Chevron and Shell and all those companies pulling the oil out of the ground, the Iranian government said, no, it belongs to us from now on. You buy it from us. Instead of you owning these leases to our property, we own it. We're gonna be selling the oil. It belongs to us.
Right.
So they nationalized the oil industry, and the oil companies didn't particularly care for that. And so we helped stage a coup in Iran in 1954 and overthrew their elected leader, a guy named Mossadegh, and installed the Shah for the next 25 years. And for those 25 years, he was a real important ally for us, because he was he was put spy hardware in Iran and spy on the Russians very effectively for years, on the Soviets very effectively for years. And he was like a real strong guy. He was an oppressive dictator, and he was really strong until all of a sudden he wasn't.
Yeah,
And
well,
then
that's
he
what
fell apart
happens
real
to
fast.
dictators, right?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
They're
And
really, really strong until they're not.
And suddenly they're not. They're gone.
Yeah.
They're weak, And it just so happened that he came to this country for medical, assistance for treatment, and that pissed off the Iranians who had taken over.
That sequence of events that took place when Carter was in office, and I mean, really sort of changed, and then Shah leaving, that really kind of changed history when the Ayatollah took over. I mean, it was like that was all westernized over there. Women were running around with shorts on and stuff like that, and it really is. Kind of fascinating to go back and look at Iran and know that, of course, it was America and England, trying to make money off of them and sticking.
Well, and you and I can remember, all the Iranians who kind of flooded into LA in the late 70s and early 80s, trying to escape from the Shah, from the Ayatollah.
Yeah. Well, I actually play racquetball with a couple of those guys.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm basically kind of my age, and
remember that guy who had the Iranian who bought that mansion on Sunset Boulevard, and he had all those statues on the fence that he put pubic hair on them.
Yes. Wow. Yeah.
Only in L.A., huh?
Only in L.A. All right. Well, listen, I guess we've come to the end of our hour
allotted
here.
time.
Yeah. You have anything else important to say, Jim or Kaylin? Do you have anything like that you wanted to mention or say that I didn't cover? Listen, I wanted to be able to do one or two podcasts Well, I wasn't talking about myself, and I think I accomplished that. Well, I wasn't talking about myself the entire time.
Well, we were talking about unfinished movies, and I found this a source called Unproduced and Unfinished Films, an ongoing film comment project. My God, this is a compendium of all the projects that were started and dropped. This thing goes back to like the 1920s. This was a really interesting to look at all these various movies. I remember one of them they mentioned was called The Confederacy of Dunces that I was part of at one time when it first got off the ground. And for years, people have been trying to make that. That's one of the best, funniest books I've ever read. And
Who wrote it? Who wrote
a guy named John Kennedy Toole. He was a young fellow who died when he wrote the book, and then he committed suicide about 2 years later because he couldn't get his writing career going. And his mother persevered and got the manuscript into the hands of a well-known writer named Walker Percy. And Percy loved the book and told his university, Louisiana State University, that they ought to publish this book. It was the first work of fiction that they ever published. And I knew a guy who was Paul Mazursky's development fellow. Mazursky was a client of ours at ICM. His name was Scott Kramer. And Scott and I were having lunch one day, and Scott said, I bought a book on flowers of the Southeast for my mother. And the university that I bought it from sent me a card saying, we're going to publish our first work of fiction. Would you like a copy? And I said, sure. So I read it and I thought it was fabulous. And I called them up and I said, hey, I work for a movie producer, movie director, Paul Mazursky. Would you guys consider giving me a free option on this book? And they said, yeah, what's a free option? Well, it's an option and it's free. And Scott's been involved with that book for years. Various people over the years have tried to make it. John Candy was attached at one time. Chris Farley was attached at one time. John Belushi was looking at it. Steve Soderbergh has been trying to make it for years. One of these days, maybe somebody will make it, but that was one.
So is the new dinosaur movie getting a lot of praise as being
it's got a lot of box office.
Well, I know that. I'm just wondering if it's
I haven't read any reviews of it yet.
Yeah, it doesn't really make any difference what the reviews say. Reviews really
I'm curious how the Karate Kid reboot plays.
Well, currently it's sitting at 52% with the critics and 72% with the audience on Rotten Tomatoes.
That's not that great.
Which I've given up on really paying attention to the critics' scores on Rotten Tomatoes, but the audience scores you can usually gauge a movie pretty well.
Yeah, but that's pretty low. What is it? 60%?
72, which is
72.
Bad.
It's not bad. Yeah.
It's like fine, it's average, I guess.
Yeah. Who stars in that movie?
Scarlett Johansson and I think Mahershala Ali.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah. Good for him.
Yeah. All right. Well, like I said, I wanted to be able to get through one of these podcasts without talking about myself. And if we spend any longer, I just have this need to just like make it about me. So I'm very proud of myself right now.
Might be the time to sign off. When you feel that tendency, to bring yourself into the conversation, yeah.
Yeah. What's that saying? Enough about something? What about me? Or
enough about me. Let's talk about you. What do you think of me?
There you go. Well, we'll leave it with that one. All right, Jim. All right. Thank you. I'll talk to you soon. All right.